How's it, everybody? Oh no, that is not what we're actually trying to do today. Give me a second. Oh no. How's it, everybody? Oh no, that is not what we're actually trying. Oh hey, it actually sounded a lot better this time around. But at what cost though? Okay, give me a second, guys, so I can actually change the window. Let's see. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Okay. Little minor technical difficulties, but I'm gonna see if I can actually make that work. There we go. That is gonna be our subject today. How's it, everybody, and welcome back into into fanfiction reading today. As I am Ikoda Nui, and we are actually now back here into the Paper Plane Inn. As you can see, I tried my best to help mitigate the echo a little bit more in hopes that it'll be a little bit of a less detriment than compared to how it was yesterday and the last stream before it. Hi, Danny Lockhart. Welcome back. Welcome back into the inn. Okay, let me see if I could just at least mitigate the blanket a little bit to be this way. There we go. You know what? I guess it'll have to do. But as you can see today, that last week we have finally did Silent Ponyville. That is the first of its series, where we actually delve into the mind of Pinkie Pie as well as the nightmares that she had suffered. And it was thanks to Twilight she was able to figure out the answers and what was really the cause of all these nightmares, only to reveal that there's a much deeper truth that was buried underneath, that was from a traumatic event in her life. And we managed to go and push through into about the entirety of the first of the series, which is a little bit of a my bad situation there, because originally I wanted to split Silent Ponyville into 2 streams, but I made the terribly bad mistake of going for the entirety of 4.5 hours when I should have split it in 2. But in the case, it was right there in its entirety, so no big deal, I guess. And we thought that things would actually end right there when it comes to Pinkie's tale and her nightmares that is regarding to Silent Ponyville. But what if I were to tell you that's not really the case? What if I were to tell you that when somebody else had managed to gain through the light after going through the dark, another pony in this case is going to have to go through the same road that Pinkie once took. Oh, hey there, Foofy. Welcome back into the inn. How are you guys doing? As you can see, I did my best to help mitigate the echo here. I mean, my boyfriend and I recently moved, but the studio that I'm currently residing in is, well, as maybe you can actually hear, it's not entirely furnished. So I did a thing to help make things a little bit easier for everyone else by taking a blanket, a bit of a thickish blanket, and say this one quilt blanket that is in our bedroom, and I draped it over me in hopes that it'll help mitigate the echo. Do I really sound clear enough to you guys? Let's see. I'm playing Pokemon Crystal right now and training a Psyduck that I caught last night. Oh, good for you. I guess without further ado, I think it's about time we decided to delve back into the world I think it's about time we delve back and head back into Ponyville, where we go through another pony's journey, if you will. Let's see. And without further ado, let us now begin with Silent Ponyville 2, Chapter 1. This is also another grim, dark story, and it was supposed to be a fanfic that was written by the same author, and this fanfic takes one plus after a story that the author wrote before this, but I decided not to because this is Halloween month, and as much as further context is needed, it's not really required. But that... Okay, without further ado, Chapter 1.
How does it make that sound?
A young filly stared, hypnotized by the gentle music caressing her ears. The small wooden box before her let out a harmony that reminded her of angels. The warm body next to her grew closer, nuzzling up against her. I don't know the details myself. An older mare's soothing voice swept through her ears as if the voice itself was trying to hug her. Her voice was soft, yet delicate. But it's just like an instrument. Every piece is finely tuned, so that when a chord is struck, it plays a gentle note.
But it only plays one song.
The young filly is mused as she continued to stare and comforted by the warmth of the other with her. Oh goodness, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, give me a minute, chat. I need to settle my phone right next to me to act as a second monitor.
But it only plays one song,
the young filly mused as she continued to stare, comforted by the warmth of the other with her.
And it seemed a little sad.
She leaned her head against the bigger body, resting against it. Yes, I suppose it does sound a little sad. The older mare smiled warmly, the long mane falling in the filly's face. The little filly giggled a little as the hair tickled her face, before moving it out of the way to smile at the music box. But this music box is very special to me. The older mare sighed happily.
I like it.
The little filly smiled happily, closing her eyes as she listened to the melody softly flowing through her ears. She couldn't help but think it was beautiful. Please never forget that I love you. The older mare's voice grew quiet with those words.
I know, Mother. I love you too.
The filly nuzzled against her mother happily. The older mare grew quiet as the filly nuzzled against her mother. There was silence filled the air, only being filled by the gentle and calming music of the box.
Mother?
The young filly broke the silence, but it soon returned. The chimes of the music seemed to slow down, drawing out the individual note.
Mother?
She called again, lifting her head up to try to look at her mother. The older mare had suddenly grown quiet.
Mother, say something.
The filly pleaded, pushing against her mother with her hooves, trying to get her attention. The mare's body felt like it was growing colder, wobbling a little bit before falling over. The older mare lay on the floor. Her hair looked like cobwebs on the ground, her coat growing dull, her unmoved form framed against the darkness of the ground.
Mother!
The young filly pushed her hooves against her mother as the music box continued to slow down, each note ringing in her head that something was wrong. The filly moved her hooves away from her mother and stared at her hooves. Her blood covered her hooves. The body of the mare was withering away, blood escaping from underneath her body.
Mother! Mother! Mother!
The filly cried as tears began to stream down her eyes, shaking her mother's body to wake her, to tell her that everything is all right. The music box died. No, the music from the box died. The body of the filly's mother turned into dust as it vanished in the wind, leaving nothing but the blood that had been spilled. The filly shook and cried, Tears drenched her cheeks. She touched the blood stain on her floor, trying to feel any remaining of the heat that told her her mother was still alive. The blood was cold, no sign of life to it. The music box started to play the music once more, but it no longer played the sad but beautiful song. The music box hissed a horrifying sound as if bees suddenly filled the box. The filly looked up into the darkness, terror filling her core. Red eyes gleamed as the presence made itself known. It towered over the filly as it grew closer. Its body cloaked in darkness. The darkness itself flickering flowed off from its body. Its mouth opening, revealing a gaping hole of white filled with jagged black. The presence of the creature crushed the filly. She couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. She was paralyzed by the very thing that stood before her. With a single swift movement, the creature closed the distance. Its teeth sunk into the filly's neck, lifting her up, holding her as if it was a prize. Tears continued to stream down the filly's face, as if the blood slipped down her body. The creature growled before dropping the filly on the top of the dust of her mother. The filly could do nothing but stare into the darkness of the world. Even that darkness was soon fading in a separate darkness. The filly's vision was filled with that beast. Its jagged white tongue turned into a grin as once more drew its teeth at the filly's face. Alright, I'm gonna go take a look at chat. How's everyone doing so far? Okay. Let me look at chat. Why did that give me Fluttershy's music box vibes? I think it kinda does. Hey there, Bearwald, how are you doing? You sure the echo is fine? Well, I don't know. I mean, I try my best to help mitigate it by wrapping myself up with this comforter of a blanket over me, but I don't know if that actually worked. I mean, I'm barely wrapped over it. I don't know. Okay. I wonder if I should read my MLP fanfic on stream. I mean, feel free to try. Yep, none to be heard so far. Well, that's good at least. That's good. But yeah, I'm actually glad that things are going. Things are not really looking okay so far when it comes to Fluttershy. When it comes to this nightmare. But as you can see, it's not going to last forever. Oh, I'm doing good too. Also, before I actually forget, I don't know if I actually added this in properly, but I've made a bit of a goal, if you will, when it comes to this Twitch stream, that if I have about 20 subs if I had collected about 20 subs so far, I got 2. I am going to read My Immortal for my Twitch stream, and I don't know when that cup is going to be filled, but I made that goal, I established it, and I don't know how I'm gonna integrate that there, but yeah, I made a browser source. Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, but yeah, as you can see right there, I have made a goal that in case when I finally reach that point, when I finally reach 20 subs, I am going to add My Immortal into the fanfic I will read into this stream. Careful with your promises. That's how Melissa. Let's see. Sub goal. Let's add that there right now. Before we continue, I need to okay. I don't know if that's that's a terrible formatting for my goal. Okay. I don't know how to feel about that. I think there's a way I can actually fix that. I don't know. This'll have to do. I may have to fix that up later. But yeah, that's gonna be the sub goal. Ooh, that looks really bad. Oh no, that looks, oh no. That looks horrifically bad. There's gotta be a way for me to fix that, right? Okay. No, that did not help me at all. Okay, I'm gonna have to fix that later, but I'm gonna put that there for now until further notice. But yeah, that's gonna be, that's my goal. Until I get 20 subs, I will then read My Immortal for my into my Twitch stream. So yeah, I guess it's now time we continue. Fluttershy awoke with a scream. She panted heavily as she sat, staring at her pillow in the darkness, the covers hanging on her shoulders, her body soaked with sweat. The cool night air filled her burning, aching lungs. She put a hoof to her face, feeling the fresh tears that had been streaming from her face. She hiccuped softly as she tried to rub them away, still feeling the fresh ones wanting freedom as well. Something rustled under the covers next to her as she froze, turning her head as she and heard the moan of something waking up. Another one. Rainbow Dash groaned, sitting up from the spot of her bed, rubbing her eyes.
How many was that now? At least 10?
She let out a yawn, obviously still not used to being woke up in the middle of the night constantly.
I'm sorry.
Fluttershy hiccuped, squeezing her eyes as she desperately tried to hold back her tears, her body shaking.
I keep waking you up. I shouldn't have asked you to try to comfort me.
Fluttershy stuttered her words, lumps of forming up in her throat as tears escaped her shut eyelids. Rainbow put her hoof to her face. She shifted onto the bed before wrapping a hoof comforting her mere friend's shoulders. Fluttershy leaned into Rainbow's chest and sobbed softly into her.
Come on, Fluttershy. You know by now that me sleeping in isn't as important as you feeling it better.
Rainbow said quietly, blowing her head closer to Fluttershy's. Fluttershy didn't reply, only continuing with her soft sobs.
So me spending the last few nights here hasn't helped your nightmares. That's no big deal. It just shows how serious this is.
Rainbow said, trying her best to offer comforting words, something she wasn't so used to. Fluttershy couldn't help but whimper in response. The nightmares terrified her. She was barely able to fall asleep anymore, knowing that they were waiting for her inside of her own mind. She didn't want to sleep anymore. She wanted to stay up and be rid of the dreams. But her body was exhausted. It demanded sleep, but her mind screamed to stay awake. The conflict inside her only brought up more tears. Rainbow looked into the darkness of Fluttershy's room as she tried desperately to think of something to do or to say.
If only I was smarter,
Rainbow Dash thought to herself. It was as if a light bulb had been turned on in Rainbow's mind.
Fluttershy, in the morning, let's go see Twilight. I'm sure she can help with these nightmares. I mean, she's got all kinds of books. I'm sure she'll have something that can help us with. That she can help us with.
Rainbow spoke eagerly but softly, making sure Fluttershy heard her.
Do you really think she can help?
Fluttershy asked, managing to wipe her face as her sobs softened.
Yeah, of course she can.
Rainbow said confidently, nuzzling up against Fluttershy.
She's Twilight. Even if she can't find an answer, she can ask Celestia. We'll get rid of these nightmares before you know it.
Thank you. Fluttershy smiled softly. The tears finally stopped.
Hey, what's a mirror friend for?
Rainbow grinned, kissing Fluttershy's forehead.
I still don't feel like sleeping, though,
Fluttershy said, staring at her pillow of her bed. It was still deep in the middle of the night. Rainbow said in thought. She wasn't sure what to say for that. She looked up in the ceiling as a thought. She looked up at the ceiling as she thought about it. She then let off a shrug unintentionally as the thought rolled through her mind. I guess it's now or never then.
Huh?
Fluttershy said, confused, as she felt herself being pushed down onto the bed. She looked up at Rainbow as she laid on her back. Rainbow climbed up onto Fluttershy before kissing Fluttershy deeply. Don't worry. I'll make sure I'll take your mind off those nightmares so long as you can finish resting. Rainbow grinned, blushing deeply. Fluttershy blushed in return, surprising but accepting as she closed her eyes, their lips meeting once more. Okay, let me go on to look at chat. Let's see. How's everyone else been taking on that? I mean, it was kind of sweet that he was able to write that. I mean, I'm much more of a fluttercord person, but this one is actually pretty okay too. Let me see. Let me see about that. Alright, is everyone ready to continue where we can? Okay.
Shouldn't you clear the clouds?
Fluttershy asked, yawning as her and Rainbow walked through the town. The warm sun only slightly obscuring by a few clouds, lingering around the sky.
This is more important,
Rainbow said, rubbing Fluttershy's head.
I can clear the clouds in a snap. Let's see if we can get you feeling better first.
Rainbow grinned.
I suppose.
Fluttershy rubbed her eyes, still trying to get rid of the sleepiness. She had started to develop bags under her eyes from the lack of sleep, but nothing severe.
Suppose nothing. It isn't more important,
Rainbow said, trying once more to build Fluttershy's confidence.
Just focus on getting better. Everything else can wait till then. Getting better? Is Fluttershy sick?
Okay. Where was I? Oh, shit, there. Oh, okay. Rainbow and Fluttershy stopped as they looked behind them, seeing Pinkie Pie standing behind them with a basket and hoof with letters.
Oh, hey, Pinkie Pie,
Rainbow said, turning to smile at their pink friend.
And no, we're not really sick. It's just that women and no, she's not really sick. She's just having...
I am so sorry, Chet.
And no, she's not really sick. She's just been having some really bad...
Okay, I am so sorry. My performance is not all there today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Okay.
And no, she's not really sick. She's just been having some really bad nightmares lately. So we're going to see Twilight if she can help.
The silence was almost deafening, despite its brevity. The basket in Pinkie's hoof fell, hitting the ground with what it seems like a loud thud, the letters spilling out before it.
Nightmares?
Pinkie stuttered, a look of shock on her face.
Pinkie, you dropped your basket,
Rainbow said, pointing to it.
No time for that,
Pinkie said, quickly rushing to Fluttershy's side. She looked to Fluttershy over, causing the yellow Pegasus to flinch a little before Pinky looked into her face.
How bad are these nightmares? How long have you been having them? They're awful.
Fluttershy squeaked, answering through the though intimidated by Pinky's actions.
I've been waking up crying for the last week and a half now. I thought Rainbow Dash could help me make them go away, but they still haven't stopped. So Rainbow suggested we go see Twilight.
Okay. My bad. Pinky stared, mouth agape at Fluttershy. Fluttershy began to sweat a little, not understanding what was going through the pink pony's head. Pinkie Pie then looked serious for a moment, before turning her head from Fluttershy, as if she was a serious mental contemplation.
Pinkie Pie, what's going on? You're acting even stranger more than you normally do.
Rainbow looked at Pinkie Pie, confused by her actions.
It's nothing.
Pinkie lied, stepping back from Fluttershy.
But I'm going to Twilight's with you.
It sounded more like a demand more than an offer.
Okay. Oh no, it's okay, Pink. I'm going with you.
Pinkie interrupted Fluttershy, not backing down.
Okay.
Fluttershy meekly agreed, as Pinkie then nodded, taking the lead into the Twilight's house. Rainbow Dash looked at one of the scattered letters on the ground, picking it up and looking at the pink envelope curiously.
What's gotten into Pinkie Pie?
Fluttershy asked. She's looked at Rainbow Dash, confused about what just happened.
I don't know, but she just put off inviting us to a party for it.
Rainbow shoved the envelope to her.
Wow, this is serious,
Fluttershy said in a shock.
Hey, come on. We need to go to Twilight's house. Hey, come on. We need to go to Twilight's house. Right now.
Pinkie Pie called out to the two mares after realizing they haven't immediately followed.
I think it's best if we do what she says for now,
Rainbow said, not wanting a chance to thinking what else a serious Pinkie Pie might do.
Right.
Fluttershy agreed, as the two of them quickly followed after Pinkie.
Alright, taking a little spot and a break. Oh, hi, Phantom May. Hi, welcome back into the inn. Well, it's okay if you're late. Better late than never. And thank you for the hydrate.
I really need to figure out how to fix up that My Immortal goal, sub goal right there, because that did not look so good at all. The more I think about it, it looks ugly. It really does look ugly.
Oh, and a stretch, thank you. Okay, give me a second. I need to unfurl everything. Oh, good Lord. Okay. Oh, good Lord in heaven. Oh, good Lord in heaven. Okay. I think I can do this. I just need to stretch a little bit before going back to the pit that is my blanket. Because in order to help mitigate the echo of the blanket, help mitigate the echo of this room, because this is fan fiction reading, I had to resort using a thick blanket in order to help make things a little bit cleaner-ish. I don't know. Did it work well for you guys? I think. Okay. Now let's continue where we can. Oh, hey, Pinkie Pie. Twilight! We've got a serious problem!
Pinkie barged into Twilight's house without giving a purple unicorn a chance of a pose for greeting.
And a problem as big as last last time I visited you with a problem. Huh? Do you mean the nightmares are back?
Twilight asked, a little confused, looking Pinky over.
But your mane is... Oh, no, the problem isn't with me this time.
Pinky said, pointing to the door she had just so casually walked through. Twilight turned her head to see Rainbow Dash quickly walking in as well.
Geez, Pinky, was running here really important?
Rainbow huffed as she moved past Twilight.
This is a big deal, sure, but Fluttershy's not as good as high-speed pursuits. Oh, but there was a need to rush, Dashy. Trust me for this one. We need to fix this ASAP.
Pinky tried to get Rainbow Dash to understand. Is Dash having a problem? Twilight asked, looking curiously at her rainbow-haired friend.
No, it's not her,
Pinky said, pointing to the door once more. Twilight turned once more to see Fluttershy slowly making her way in as well.
Sorry for the interruption, Twilight. I hope we aren't disturbing you from anything important.
Fluttershy apologized.
Oh, no, it's not a trouble, Fluttershy. I was just catching up on some studying.
Twilight smiled comfortingly. But is something troubling you, Fluttershy?
Oh, well, yes, actually. That's why we came to see you,
Fluttershy said, scraping her hoof against the ground.
I've been having trouble sleeping, and I was hoping you could help.
Trouble sleeping?
Trouble sleeping nothing,
Rainbow said, moving to stand next to Fluttershy.
Fluttershy's been having some nasty nightmares that's been keeping her up. She's unable to sleep, and she dreads having to go to bed. We were hoping you can help out, Twilight.
Dash explained in more detail. Well, I do happen to know one spell that I know that works. One. Twilight's words became muffled as a pink hoof was jammed into her mouth.
No, we are not using that spell. Why not?
Twilight asked as she removed the hoof from her mouth.
Because we are not.
Fluttershy, Pinky said, closing her eyes, as if not wanting to budge.
We have to find some other way to help Fluttershy.
But the spell worked so well last time. Why shouldn't I use it now? Twilight was very confused. Pinky had explained to her that the spell had let her come to terms with the tragedy of her sister's passing. But she hadn't explained what exactly happened during the spell that led to the revelation. All Twilight had seen during the delve was that what appeared to be a warped picture sitting amidst a foggy backdrop. As she tried to study the picture, it kept changing before her, till the mind delve disconnect itself in a flash of light.
Trust me, Pinky. Trust me, Twilight. Using it on Fluttershy will end badly. So we're going to help her without it,
Pinky explained. But it'd be so much easier to just use the spell. It only takes a few minutes, and I will help her with the nightmares. Doesn't that make any sense? Twilight tried to battle Pinky with her logic, an already losing battle.
Even if it does, it's still not happening,
Pinky retorted back. Fluttershy and Rainbow looked at each other, very confused. Pinky and Twilight, Fluttershy and Rainbow looked at each other, very confused, as Pinky and Twilight went back and forth. They had no idea what their friends were talking about.
So, what exactly are we trying to help? What exactly are we doing to help Fluttershy then?
Rainbow finally asked, interrupting the back and forth between the two bickering ponies. Fine. I'll go get my copy of Dreams, A Psychological Understanding, Twilight said, walking away from the pink mare who sat there looking victorious.
Thank you, Twilight. I assure you this will be the best for everyone.
Pinkie then bounced over to Fluttershy, putting her hoof around her shoulders while offering a comforting smile.
Don't worry, Fluttershy. I promise we'll make your bad dreams go away. You really think this will work?
Fluttershy looked at Pinkie for hope.
If any pony can make things better, it's Twilight. I'm sure of it.
All right, Twilight said, returning with a floating copy of the book, opening up and flipping through several places. The first thing I should do is to see what kind of dreams you're having. Since we won't be jumping straight into the mind delve spell, there's other solutions listed here that might work depending on the severity of your dreams. Twilight explained before placing the book down into the table in the full center of her house.
Oh, how would you know that?
Fluttershy asked curiously.
There's a spell in this book that will help me see the dreams you're having. I'll be able to judge them by myself to see how severe they are,
Twilight said, walking to Fluttershy.
But
Fluttershy began to protest. Don't worry, Fluttershy. Twilight...
Don't worry, Fluttershy. Twilight knows what she's doing, right?
Rainbow asked, trying to comfort the worried Pegasus. Of course. Now, it will only take a moment. Twilight smiled, not waiting for Fluttershy to give another response, before gently sweeping the hair of her forehead and tapping the glowing horn against Fluttershy's forehead. Alright, let's take a look at chat. Let's take a little bit of a breather. Pinkie's not allowing Shy to go through that. It'd be like that though. Just don't use magic. Go to the psychiatrist. Magic ain't the cure all in for that. See hypnosis doctor or something. Anything than that. As you can see, we have seen the memories. That is Twilight. That is Pinkie's nightmares. Now it's finally time we get to see good old Fluttershy's nightmares. And as you can see, given that this is the element that is Silent Ponyville, this will not end well.
I don't want to fly! I don't want to fly! I don't want to fly! I don't want to fly!
The words screamed again and again, bouncing on her skull, driving her mad. Her wings were beaten as strong as they could, despite every ounce of her telling them to stop. Her whole body was crying out for relief, pain filling the back of her legs. Her wings were bent, horribly misshapen, not even looking like they should lift her, but they carried her through the sky. Tears swept across her face as every flap sent pain shooting through her back, scratching away at her mind, eroding her sanity. A loud roar pierced through her ears and shook her whole being. Her head painfully but slowly turned to look behind her as a giant figure appeared right behind her clouds. Billowing smoke as soared as high and speed straight at her. Her legs failed, feeling as if every moment snapped and the bone tore her muscles. The large beast opened its jaws before gigantic teeth sunk straight down to her flesh. She wanted to scream, but no voice came to her. She wanted to close her eyes, but her body would not obey her. She wanted to shut down and die, but her body did not comply. The swirls of tortured screams filled every inch of her. Twisted faces and horrified cries screamed out to her. Only one word repeated itself endlessly in her mind. has nothing to decipher, only the red horror that swirled around her. It bellowed and cried, it screeched and it hollered, but its suffering would not end. Neither would hers. Everything assaulted her mind. She felt the pain as every fiber of her being was destroyed by the horror before her. The knife came down. It struck its target. She brought the knife back up. She swung it down her target to hit again. Her actions repeated itself again and again, one fluid motion after another. Her knife struck the body before her. She was coated in the warm liquid that caused her to splatter all over. Each fresh strike sent another burst of warm liquid on her body. A smile on her face, one that has not been there for a long time as she had started. She had made fresh holes and fresh liquid with each strike, plunging the knife in and out of the pony before her to bring satisfaction. They deserve this. She deserves to be the one to do this to them. This is how it was supposed to be. She plunged the knife down one last time, panting as she looked excitedly at her work. The punctured body did not move or twitched. It just laid before her. The body would never move again. She tossed the knife to the side and leaned forward, nuzzling the body as she smiled. This was love. Okay, before I go back, chat, are you holding up? That was a very intense moment. Oh yeah, that was. You kind of did miss out the beginning of the stream. I'm sorry, Phantom 8. Yeah, you kind of did. She was just talking to her friends and is now getting chomped. Hold a dang phone, okay. You gotta be good? Do you need a moment? Do you need a moment, Phantom 8? You okay? Well, that's my thoughts exactly too, Phantom 8. We're gonna figure out what's going on as well. Twilight stepped back at the memories of the dreams filled her mind. She grimaced as her stomach did a flip, a knotting form in her throat. They were horrific dreams. Dreams filled with pain, suffering, insanity, and loss. These weren't just simple nightmares. No. She had seen dreams like this before.
Are you okay, Twilight?
Fluttershy asked nervously, not sure what to expect Twilight's reaction to be.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Twilight finally managed to stay after swallowing the knot in her throat.
You're awfully pale for being okay,
Rainbow said, looking at Twilight worriedly. She didn't think the nightmares would have been so bad as to make Twilight lose a shade of color.
Well, he didn't go stumbling back into the bookcase this time. Were they not as bad?
Pinkie asked, tilting her head curiously. Oh, they're very bad. Twilight rubbed her head a little. But they're bad in a different way. I don't think I could make an accurate comparison. At the very least, they felt the same intensity.
So, what do I do?
Fluttershy asked meekly. Hold on, I need to consult the book, Twilight said, shaking her head lightly before levitating it over to herself, flipping through the pages and reading a few passages. There's a lot of spells in here, from minor nightmares, soothing remedies, relaxation methods, normal and magical psychological evaluations, but... Twilight sighed, looking at Pinkie. With what I just saw, there's one spell strong enough to find out what's happening in Fluttershy's mind.
Are you absolutely sure? There's no other spell in that book?
Pinky asked, desperate to not have to turn to that answer. I'm sure, Pinky. The Mind Delve spell is going to be our best solution.
Why are you so against using that spell, Pinky?
Rainbow asked, looking strangely at her Earth Pony friend.
You said it helped before. Why shouldn't we use it on Fluttershy?
Pinky was silent. She thought about it for a moment, before looking seriously at Twilight.
Twilight, read me the spell's description.
Twilight flipped back onto the exact page of the spell and began to read. The Mind Delve spell is used in cases where nightmares or psychological problems are not so easily discernible. This often means this problem is rooted deep in the patient's subconscious and cannot be obtained through normal psychological methods without spending a very long time treating the patient. This spell allows the users to shorten the necessary time needed in order to bring the patient to a full recovery. Each patient, the spell is used under this patient. I'm so sorry, chat. Each patient, the spell is used under experiences different results, as the subconscious is molded by the patient who owns it. No two patients will likely experience the same recovery used under the use of the spell. Pinky thought about those words carefully. Something seemed to spinning the wheels in her head.
Okay,
Pinky finally said, breaking from thought.
You can use the Mind Delve spell on Fluttershy. Under one condition, though.
What?
You have to find a way to put me into Fluttershy's mind when you do it. You want to go into my mind?
Fluttershy asked, very surprised.
Yes. I won't let you go through this alone, Fluttershy. I'm going to be there with you to help with your problem,
Pinky said, turning her head slightly, shifting her mane so Fluttershy could see it better.
I wear this red ribbon as a testament that my friends are dear to me. That means if they're going to be in trouble, then I'm going to be there to help them. I'm going to see you through this, Fluttershy, so that you can not only feel better, but so that
I am so sorry, Chad. I think my performance is not all there today.
I'm going to see you through this, Fluttershy, so that not only you do feel better, so that you don't have to go alone while doing this.
Pinky smiled.
Then I'm going in too,
Rainbow said, stepping closer to Fluttershy.
I can't just let my mare friend do something like this without me. I'm gonna be there for her too to the very end.
Rainbow grinned, nuzzling against Fluttershy. Fluttershy blushed as she smiled softly.
Thank you, both of you.
Twilight put a hoof to her face.
I don't even know how to do that,
Twilight said as she walked off towards the bookshelf.
You guys are going to have to give me a moment. There's nothing in the dream's psychological understanding that explains how to link minds together,
she said as she began to levitate books off her shelf, checking each title before pushing them off to the side. There's a distinct sound of her mumbling something about how she shouldn't have sent Spike on the shopping trip that day.
This could take a while,
Rainbow said, looking at the two mares.
Let's play some games to pass the time,
Pinky chimed in happily.
That sounds fun.
Fluttershy smiled. Alright, checking in the chat. This writer loves the torturing characters of this child show. Well, I do have a feeling he's not the only one who went through that. You got people who also wrote Cupcakes, Rainbow Factory, and the Apple Experiment, all that jazz. Yeah. There are some people who want to write fanfics, and then there are those who want to write fanfics and stretch them out, if you will, and put them into different genres that they want to experiment on, aside from the romance genre. such as, well, psychological horror or horror in general, or sometimes they want to put them in adventures.
I am so sorry for reminding you of cupcakes. I really am.
Okay. Trauma for everyone, I guess.
It can't be like that, though.
Alright. Let's continue.
King me!
Pinky grinned happily, having victoriously jumped several of Dash's pieces before arriving to the opposite end of the checkers board.
Man, Pinky, how are you so good at this?
Rainbow furrowed her brow as she looked at the board. She was clearly losing for the 5th time of the row. Pinky had just obtained her 3rd king.
Here's our practice, Dashy.
Pinky chuckled as she awaited for her opponent's next move.
I think you're both doing very well.
Fluttershy smiled, having enjoyed watching the matches.
Okay!
Twilight suddenly declared very loudly, putting the books she had been studying vigorously down. I think I got something. By using a mixture of various spells, I should be able to get all of you to share Fluttershy's mind delve. I don't know how well it'll work. At the moment, it's all theory. But I've made theories work before. I can do it again. Twilight nodded, walking towards her friends.
Oh, good. I was getting tired of this game anyway.
Rainbow said, standing up, waving a hoof at the board.
Only 'cause you're losing.
Pinky chuckled before hopping as well, before turning into Twilight and looking a little serious.
Are you absolutely sure you can get this to work, Twilight?
Absolutely. When have you ever known me to mess up a spell once I was confident and how... When have you ever known me to mess up a spell I was so confident in how it worked? Twilight asked curiously.
Not in continuity. Not in continuity.
What was that? Twilight asked, not having heard her well.
Nothing.
Pinky smiled before turning into Fluttershy.
Are you ready for this, Fluttershy? I guess I'm ready as I'll ever be,
she said, walking next to Pinky. Well, have you ever feeling better? We'll have you feeling better in no time. Just you wait. Rainbow Dash smiled, standing next to Fluttershy as well, smiling her confident smile. All right, here it goes. Twilight's horn lit up, glowing brightly as she concentrated. She walked up to her 3 friends who stood before her, before gently tapping her horn at each of their foreheads. A thin blue line attached to her horn had stretched out their foreheads with each tap. The light surrounding her horn grew brighter as she stepped forward, before tapping her horn against Fluttershy's forehead. In an instant, the world felt like it slipped under Fluttershy's hooves. Everything felt hazy as her body almost felt numb. She couldn't keep track of her surroundings, though she felt like she was falling. The only indication felt like she was moving in the sensation of winds rolling around her. She stumbled and fell through a hazy fog in her mind, unable to comprehend anything. She let out a sharp gasp as air finally returned to her lungs. She panted for a moment before her eyes fluttered open. She got her bearings slowly as the world began to come view before her. She was still inside Twilight's house. However, it was now missing a particular purple unicorn.
Twilight, what's the big deal? That spell.
It was Rainbow's voice she heard next. She turned her head and saw her mare friend already standing up, looking around for Twilight.
Wait, where did she go? I don't think I could ever get used to that.
It was Pinky's turn to speak up. Rainbow and Fluttershy looked behind them to see her groggy to see her groggily stand up.
But I'm glad to see she got it to work.
She smiled seeing her two friends.
What's going on, Pinky? Where's Twilight?
Rainbow asked, looking around, confused at their missing unicorn friend.
That's normal. She's not gonna be here with us,
Pinky said, looking around quickly. She got up and ran into a nearby window, looking out of it. She grew quiet as she stared out to the window.
Pinkie Pie?
Fluttershy asked, looking at her friend oddly.
Is this what you went through when Twilight helped you?
Rainbow asked curiously. There was silence for a moment. Rainbow and Fluttershy looked at each other for a little confused, before Pinky finally spoke back up.
Yes.
She turned away from the window, looking at her two friends with a serious look.
It's almost exactly the same as what I went through. It's almost exactly the same as what I went through, and it's exactly the reason why I had to come.
Pinky said, galloping across the library to a shelf, before pulling a map out of it.
What do you mean?
Fluttershy asked as Pinky brought the map over to the table. Fluttershy and Rainbow walking up to it.
We're going to need this to keep track where we are,
Pinky explained, pointing to the map of Ponyville that she unfurled before them. Pinky looked up from the map, seeing that a bag lay onto the table as well.
Fluttershy, you should be the one to take that bag,
Pinky explained, pointing to it.
Why?
Fluttershy asked, confused, grabbing the bag and pulling it closer, opening it.
Trust me, we're going to need it. Is there some kind of instrument of some kind is there some kind of instrument inside of it?
Pinky asked, seeing Fluttershy look inside. Almost as if to answer Pinky's words, a soft, almost haunting melody began to slowly play from the bag. Fluttershy carefully reached in and pulling an old music box that was playing the soft tune.
This...
Fluttershy stared at the music box in shock.
This is my music box my mother owned.
What's it doing here? Rainbow asked, looking at it curiously.
I don't know. I lost it a long time ago. How did it get here?
Fluttershy wondered quietly. The music slowly faded to a stop. She continued to stare at the music box. Pinky rolled up the map of Ponyville before placing it in her bag.
Come on, let's head out,
Pinky said, smiling at Fluttershy before heading to the front of the door.
Head out? Where are we going?
Rainbow looked confused at her pink friend.
We're going to Fluttershy's cottage. If we're going to find any answers, I think that's the first place we need to check,
Pinky explained as she opened the door.
Answers to what? The nightmares?
Rainbow thought in confusion.
What does this strange place have to do with them? Why are we even here?
Fluttershy gently put the music box in her bag, and she listened to Rainbow Dash's questions. She closed the bag with a clasp of a blue and pink butterfly. She gently lifted up the bag and placed it onto her back to carry with her.
I can't say for sure about this place. I think we're inside Fluttershy's mind, but at the same time, it feels a little too solid to just be our imaginations.
Pinky scuffed to the floor, softly as she explained.
The only thing I know is for sure is that we need to get ready for anything.
Pinky opened the front door, stepping outside.
Let's follow her,
Fluttershy said, smiling at Rainbow.
She seems to know what she's talking about, so we should follow her till we get our bearings.
All right, Flutter. All right. I suppose that makes sense, Rainbow said before following after Pinky. Fluttershy followed the same, stepping out from Twilight's house.
What's with this weather?
Rainbow cried in confusion. Fluttershy stood in shock. Ponyville had fallen into a thick fog. No building could be seen past a few feet in front of their eyes. End of chapter 1. That lasted much longer than how it was in the previous chapters. There was so much content that we managed to put there, but we actually had to stop from time to time to actually catch up ourselves and take a breather. But how's everyone doing from that? What do you think of chapter 1 so far? She needs to ban that spell. Not just that, tear out that book and set it on fire. It can't be like that though. But we have now entered inside Fluttershy's mind, and this is where things start to go from. We have now entered into, well, the game world as we speak. That is, well, Silent Ponyville. Oh, man. Am I dumb, or can you guys actually hear the buzzing of my laptop? Oh my god, my fan is... Oh, it's burning hot. Okay, wow, that is bad. Okay. Sometimes it's just like that one quote from the first of the first Ponyville series, Phantom A. You must cross the darkness to see the light. And if Pinky can do it... Yeah, you can hear the buzzing. Okay, I am so sorry, chat. I really am. It's just that I try my best to help make things mitigate from the echo. I mean, it's like one thing, when we saw one thing, another thing just decided to pop up, and I am so sorry about that, chat. I really am. But how's that? Is that much better? Can you guys not hear the buzzing? Can you guys, do I still come out okay? I'm fine, but just be careful. Okay. Alright, let me see if I could just make some openings for my fan. So that way it can still have some level of ventilation while we do our reading. I really should fix the echo. Fortunately, tomorrow, my acoustic foams, which are very cheap that I can find on Amazon, are coming through. And tomorrow's a day off, so that's going to be a time for me to actually do the installation and see if that actually works. It's not a Mac. It's actually an MSI laptop, if you will. The computer still whirls, though. Maybe I should actually take a break and lessen the echo. Oh man, it's still bad. Oh man, this is really bad. Okay, I guess we can actually take a little bit of a break and lessen the blanket, and we can actually go with this. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. I think we can actually go up to 2 chapters today, because if chapter 1 is a bit of a chunker, who knows if chapter 2 is also going to be that one as well. So, I guess, let's begin. Rainbow desperately waved her hoof, but no matter what she did, she couldn't seem to Rainbow desperately waved her hoof, but no matter what she did, she couldn't seem to grab a hold of the fog. She reared her hind legs and kicked as hard as she could, but her legs hit air.
What is wrong with this fog? Why can't I touch it?
Rainbow huffed, stomping her hoof onto the ground.
I'm not sure. It seems like this for me too,
Pinky said, looking up at the sky.
I only tried to escape from here using my balloon to fly out, but it had too many holes in it. I don't know what's beyond the fog bank. Well, I'm about to find out. If nothing else, I should be able to get rid of this fog,
Rainbow said, spreading her wings before racing up into the sky, disappearing from the sight quickly.
Do you think it's safe?
Fluttershy asked, looking at Pinky curiously.
Well, if anyone can handle herself, it's Rainbow Dash. I'm sure she'll manage to have this place cleared up in 10 seconds flat.
Pinky's words were interrupted by an ear-shattering roar that bounced and echoed through the town. It felt like the very earth itself was shaking at the roar. Fluttershy and Pinky so instantly looked up into the sky as the direction of the roar as Rainbow came barreling through the fog. The music box in Fluttershy's bag began to hiss with a sound familiar to bees being stuck in the box. "Hide now!" She yelled loudly before swooping down to grab the hooves of her friends, before giving them a chance to register her words. She dragged them back into the library. Then they all heard a tremendous thud shaking the ground. It's as if something gigantic had just landed quickly.
What's going on?
Pinky tried to ask, only to have Rainbow Dash quickly shove her hooves into her mouth, giving a loud shh.
Look around carefully. Look around the corner carefully.
Rainbow said. Rainbow whispered harshly before looking at the tree herself. Pinky and Fluttershy carefully looked around the corner themselves. Fluttershy's eyes widened as she felt as if her heart could stop at the sight before them. A gigantic black dragon had landed in front of Twilight's house. It growled softly as black smoke billowed from its nose. It gave a snort, shooting out a large part of the smoke into the air, as if swiveled its head around, looking for the pony that had escaped from its sight. It stepped forward, carefully examining the building and the areas of the streets. It gave another snort of frustration, as if its wings opened up, giving him a good flap, lifting its body into the sky and causing everything to rattle and shake with the force of the wind. With a few more quick flaps, it flew up into the fog-filled sky, disappearing from sight. The buzzing of the music box faded away with the dragon. The three mares stood frozen, waiting until they could no longer hear the beating of its wings before letting out a long, collective sigh.
What is that? What's a dragon doing here?
Pinky asked, stepping out from behind the tree, looking up where it had flown.
I don't know, but it seems to know exactly where I was the moment I started flying.
Rainbow Dash said, looking at her wings.
I can't even go into the sky and clear this weather away if it knows where I'm flying. What?
Rainbow Dash groaned.
Meaning I can't fly at all. And that thing... meaning I can't fly at all. And that we're going to have to deal with this fog. It's all right.
Pinky smiled reassuringly.
The fog's not so bad. Once we get inside, we'll be able to see just fine.
If you say so.
All right, let's go, Flutter.
Rainbow said, turning to look at the ball of pink that was curled up, shivering onto the floor.
Fluttershy?
She asked worriedly, quickly running over to her mare friend.
Dragon that chases you. Fly.
Fluttershy stuttered in fear, whimpering and shivering, curled up in the ball behind the tree. She was scared out of her wits.
Hey, calm now. It's all right. He's gone now.
Rainbow said, leaning down, nuzzling Fluttershy gently.
He's gone and he won't hurt you. I promise.
Fluttershy began to calm down, feeling the comfort of Rainbow Dash. She stopped shivering, leaning up and nuzzling Rainbow Dash back.
It's just one dragon. We'll get you to your house, find out what's causing these nightmares, and we'll be out of here in no time, okay?
Rainbow said, reassuring her mare friend.
Well,
Pinky said, looking conflicted.
I don't want to lie to you two, but that might not be what we face. That might be my...
I am so sorry, Chet. My performance is not all there today.
I don't want to lie to you two, but that might not be all we face.
What do you mean? What do you mean there's more? Rainbow said, looking surprised at Pinky.
Well, when this happened to me before, I encountered many monsters.
Pinky hung her head solemnly, not wanting to have to say this.
It's why I didn't want Fluttershy to come here alone. I was afraid she'd have to face some monsters like I did, and I couldn't stand the idea of having her to face them alone.
Fluttershy shrunk back into her ball at Pinky's words.
And you didn't tell us this when we were discussing the spells!
Rainbow almost yelled, but holding herself back. Oh, I just did that. Oops.
Hey, I tried to get different spells to be used. I did everything I could to make sure so we didn't have to resort to this. And when we did it, I refused to let her to do this alone.
Pinky protested to Dash's accusations.
You still could have told us that there'd be monsters.
Rainbow felt her hair standing on her head.
We could have been more prepared. We could have prepared for them facing. We could have prepared for facing them or running away. We could have even brought our elements.
Rainbow growled in frustration, closing her eyes.
We could have done something and not put our lives into danger.
Rainbow panted heavily. She was angry. She couldn't remember being so angry before.
I'm sorry.
Pinky lowered her head, her ears folding back. Rainbow opened her eyes and looked at Pinky. Pinky looked like she was on the verge of tears. Rainbow opened her mouth to say something, but closed it again. She was still mad, but she couldn't stay mad at her friend this way. Rainbow looked into her head at Fluttershy, who's covered her head with her hooves, shaking. Rainbow was sure she could hear Fluttershy's soft sobs. Rainbow sighed softly, walking up to Fluttershy, lying down to the ground before her, lowering her head and nuzzling her mirror friend gently. Fluttershy hiccuped softly, trying to breathe. Her mind is reeling from everything.
Fluttershy, listen to me, please.
Rainbow said, closing her eyes, speaking to her from her heart.
This isn't the best situation we found ourselves in, but I need you to know that no matter what happens or what we face, you're going to be okay.
Fluttershy began to calm down again, sniffling as she took a deep breath, feeling the comfort of her mirror friend. She slowly uncurled from her ball, moving closer to Rainbow, wrapping her head around Rainbow's neck, and Rainbow nuzzled against Fluttershy's neck.
I need you to be strong right now, alright?
Fluttershy looked up to Rainbow's eyes, seeing the comfort and warmth they offered. She heard her words as they echoed in her mind. She gulped down the nervous tension that had been building in her throat, before nodding slowly.
That's my girl.
Rainbow kissed her forehead. She helped Fluttershy onto her hooves.
Now give me a smile, alright?
It took a moment, but Fluttershy managed to bring her courage forward and put a smile on her face. Rainbow smiled back before turning to face Pinkie Pie, who still had an apologetic look onto her face.
Hey, look, it's alright, Pinkie Pie.
Rainbow put a smile on her face for her friend.
I know you meant well. You wouldn't have put us in danger on purpose. But since we're here already, we might as well just deal with it. You're right. You're still right, Dash.
Pinky's turned her head away from Dash, still with a look of hurt on her face.
I was really stupid I was a stupid pants.
Pinky let out a soft sigh before putting a smile on her face.
But I'll do my best to make up for this and get us out of here as quickly as possible. So let's head to Fluttershy's house.
Right. Rainbow nodded, smiling, the three mirrors walking off into the fog. Alright, taking a little breather. How's everyone from that chat? That was one hell of an opener, wasn't it? Yes, it takes place long before that episode. In fact, the Silent Hill Ponyville series takes place long before season 2 of My Little Pony actually came in mind. So the concept of Discord and everything else after that did not happen into this. It seems good so far. That's great. Alright, without further ado, let us continue where we left off. But, is my echo situation still that bad over there or something? I mean, this is me without the blanket situation that we're going through right now as we speak. Okay. Alright, at least I sound okay so far. Okay. Alright, let's begin. Alright. It seemed like a long walk to reach the outskirts of Fluttershy's cottage. The town had been deathly quiet. There was a moment or two where they had a dozen, thinking that they've heard the wings of a beats of a dragon, but it faded as quickly as it came. Ponyville had become a ghost town. The only 3 inhabitants seemed to be the 3 of them as they made their way out of town. Following the path along the park, past the trees, quickly approaching the house where Fluttershy lived. The air had felt thick between them. None of them have spoken since they started walking. The sounds that they've heard are their footsteps and the occasional breeze that seems to blow through the town.
Here we are,
Pinkie said as they approached the bridge before Fluttershy's house. The 3 of them just barely managing to make out the shape of the fog of her. The 3 of them just barely managing to make the shape of her house in the fog.
Do you think my animals are okay?
Fluttershy asked as she looked around, trying to spot any critters.
I don't think there's any around,
Rainbow said, looking around herself before crossing the bridge.
I'm not really.
Who said this?
I'm not really sure what determines you. I'm not really sure what determines what you do and don't find in this world. Honestly, I figure we should come into Fluttershy's house first because home was the first place I went. So since this is Fluttershy's mind, it made sense to me. When I was in my mind, the path to Fluttershy's house was blocked up. When I was in my mind, the path to Fluttershy's house was blocked off.
Pinkie explained as she walked to the front of the door of the cottage, checking any locks that might be on the door.
Well, I see. Well, I'm actually glad my animals aren't here then.
Fluttershy smiled, walking up to Pinkie.
I'd hate for them to be put in danger.
Pinkie opened up the front of the door as the 3 of them entered Fluttershy's house. To Pinkie's surprise, the house was intact. Everything was where it should be. Nothing was run down or broken. There wasn't even any dust on the house that's been sitting in time.
What's the matter, Pinkie? You look surprised.
Rainbow chuckled as she walked further into the house.
I guess I am a little.
Pinkie chuckled a little awkwardly as she closed the door behind them.
So, what exactly are we looking for?
Rainbow asked, looking around the house.
I'm not sure. Guess anything that seems odd or out of place. Something you wouldn't expect or just clues of what's exactly going on.
Pinkie explained as she began to look around various shelves in Fluttershy's home.
Oh, well, I guess I should know them best then.
Fluttershy said, tapping the hoof of her chin as she carefully glanced around the room. As Pinkie and Rainbow Dash carefully looked around the living room, Fluttershy couldn't help but feel a connection to the kitchen. She stepped out to the living room, slowly entering the familiar space of her kitchen. She looked around carefully, trying to spot what was giving her the feeling something wasn't there. It was then that her eyes fell into the fridge. Attached to a small butterfly magnet was a piece of paper, marked with what looks like crayon. Fluttershy blinked, not having seen this paper before. She slowly walked up to there and got a better look at it. It looked like a child's drawing, drawn in several colors of crayon. It was a simple house in the sun. Outside of the house was a happy pony attending to to a garden. Below in the picture were words written in red crayon.
When I grow up, I will have a house and lots of pets. I love helping animals. I keep a key to let them know I have a house.
There was a small bulge under the paper, as if the paper was hiding something. Fluttershy carefully lifted the paper and looked onto the back of it, seeing a key taped into the back of it. She carefully peeled the key away and looking at it. The key was also in the shape of a butterfly.
Hey, how come this door is...
Hey, how come this door is locked? Fluttershy's ears perked up as she quickly walked into the living room. She saw Rainbow Dash struggling trying to open the door to her closet, which was locked tight.
Does it have a lock on it?
Pinkie Pie asked, turning from the side of the door from the room and look at the door.
Yeah, it does,
Rainbow said, looking at the door. It's got a shape of a butterfly over a keyhole.
Oh well, I just found a key with a butterfly on it.
Fluttershy said, holding up the key.
Then it should open this door,
Pinkie said, thinking about it.
Though, maybe I should open the door. Why is that? Well, I just don't want anything popping out and hurting you,
Pinkie thought, before looking at Fluttershy's saddlebag.
But I guess your music box isn't letting out any noise, so I think it should be safe. My music box?
Fluttershy blinked, turning her head at the saddlebag.
Yeah, do you remember when the music box started making noise when the dragon attacked? The music box will let you know when something that is trying to hurt you gets close. So just be careful, alright? I see. Alright then, I'll be careful.
Fluttershy nodded, walking out to the door. Rainbow backed up a little from the door. Watching Fluttershy open the door, she slowly opened up the door to the closet and looking inside a lightly lit room. She stepped inside slowly, noticing that there things would normally be placed there was missing, and then in their place was a grandfather clock with words written on the side of the wall. My hands are frozen, but they weren't always this way. I used to reach up for the sky and wave over the crowd, while my friend to the right offered me his snack.
What's in there?
Fluttershy remembered Rainbow
What's in there?
Fluttershy heard Rainbow ask from behind her.
I think it's a puzzle,
Fluttershy said, thinking about the words and looking at the clock.
I think I know the answer though,
She said, carefully lifting up her hoof to the face of the clock. She turned the long hand up to midnight, while the small hand is up facing 3. Fluttershy heard a loud click, as if something was unlatched by her actions. She looked at the clock, waiting to see what it would do, when it suddenly began to rush up and out of her vision. Fluttershy let out a cry as she lost her bearings, falling into the giant hole that opened up beneath her.
Fluttershy!
The Rainbow Dash yelled before the hatch had opened closed. Winds rushed past her ears, falling into the darkness. She screamed and cried as she opened up her wings that stopped her fall, but they were stuck, glued to her sides. Her hooves flailed as she tried to grab onto something, anything. She descended into the bottomless darkness. On second chat, I need something to hydrate my throat because I need something to... Ugh! Oh god, I needed that. You can say that, Phantom May. I mean, it's kind of... As the iconic words will go, here we go again. Fluttershy let out a groan as she slowly lifted herself up from the ground. She rubbed her head and her eyes opened. It was too dark. She couldn't see anything.
Rainbow Dash? Pinkie Pie?
Fluttershy called out, trying to reach around for something. Only silence returned her call. She felt her saddlebag in her hoof and remembered something she'd seen inside of it. She carefully opened it up before reaching in. She moved the music box slightly to the side before grabbing hold of a lantern in her teeth. She pulled it out and turned on to the light. She was in a blank room. The walls seemed to be made of cement worn by age. The sounds of water dripping echoes of the halls. Echoes of the walls. She looked up at the ceiling. A metal grate was sitting in the way. She looked up at the ceiling. A metal grate was sitting in the way of trying to fly back up to the long shaft she had fallen through.
How did I get through the grate?
She asked herself, not exactly sure what happened.
And why am I not hurt if I fell from a great distance?
She looked at her body, not seeing any damage or feeling any pain. It was as if landing on the hard cement after the falling at great height hadn't hurt her.
I need to get out of here. I need to meet up with Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie.
Fluttershy thought to herself, quickly looking around for an exit. She saw a metal door along the wall behind her.
Okay, I just need to get my bearings, where I am, and...
Fluttershy opened the metal of the door, revealing a long hallway. Water covered the floor, and after a small dip in the ground. The walls looked like they were molding over. The channel seemed to stretch and turn.
I have no idea where I am.
She had never seen this place before.
Why is it flooded with water?
She asked as she slowly began to step into it. It wasn't very deep. It only came up to her ankles, but it was enough that the tips of her hair would be dragged in it. The cool water sent a few shivers up her spine, but she headed forward. The only sound she could hear was the splashing of her steps as she went down the long hall. The quiet hallway seemed to echo and splash loudly. The darkness of the hallways began to lit only by the light of her lantern sent a chill up her spine. She really hoped she could get out of this hallway soon. She rounded a corner along the hallway, found herself facing an intersection. The paths branched out from the left and the right.
Now which place should I go? Now which way am I supposed to go?
Fluttershy furrowed her brow in frustration and fear. She didn't want to get lost. Not here. Not with the idea that monsters could be anywhere. Her music box began to hiss, letting out the sounds of bees that grimaced at herself for having jinxed it. The next sound she heard was a slow splashing of steps being taken into the water. Each step seemed to slosh around as it got closer. She looked down at both paths. She couldn't tell which way the sound was coming from, and running would only lead back to the dead end. Her attention snapped to the left route when her eyes caught the creature emerging from the light. Her eyes widened as she stared at what was treading through the water. It was a mannequin, a moving mannequin with no head. Its body's as if it was made with cloth, rotted with age and wear. It had several large seams sewn along with it as it was being pulled together and torn apart by many times. It had several pale, sickly colors, looking as if it had been trouble walking. Fluttershy took a step back from the creature. The buzzing of the music box grew louder as if it came closer. It reared its front head and smashed them down into the water, growing closer to Fluttershy. Her legs acted on their own, her galloping fast down the right path, getting as far away from the monster as she could. The water kicked up and sprayed her body as she ran as fast as she could through the hallway. The water was slowing her down, but she could outrun that creature. She looked around behind her as the buzzing of her box grew to a quiet stop. The mannequin could not keep up with her. She was in the clear. She slowed down a little, breathing softly as she turned to look at the front of her, stopping just short of running into the wall. She had come to another slit in the road. She looked down to the right path, not seeing anything unusual. Suddenly, her music box roared in its buzzing as her head snapped to the left, and right before her body was hit by two hind legs, sending her flying down to the right path. She hit the water with a huge splash, and she skidded along the ground. She winced in pain as the skin burned and her chest ached. The lantern had landed just next to her head with the splash of the water, cutting the light from the area. She groaned in pain, feeling the welt begin to form from her chest, and she groggily reached out for the light. She managed to grab the handle, lifting the lantern from the water. She could hear the steps of what attacked her, shifting through the water, getting closer slowly. She frantically moved to turn the lantern back on. It gave a few clicks without turning on, making Fluttershy grimace to each click. She desperately turned the knob again and again, praying for it to light up. The flame came to life, illuminating the mannequin whose front hooves now stood raised over her. The legs came down, striking her body. Fluttershy wanted to scream, but the handle of the lantern in her mouth just caused her to bite down. The hooves of the mannequin scratched against her skin as if it dragged through its hooves. Pain soared through Fluttershy's mind as she winced her eyes shut. Biting down onto the lantern so hard she began to bleed a little, tears rolling down her eyes as she couldn't stop her attacker. "I need you to be strong right now, all right?" Her eyes shut open as she whipped her head around and looked back at the mannequin. It's raising its hooves once more to come down at her. With all her strength, Fluttershy swirled her body around before kicking the mannequin with her hind legs. The mannequin stumbled a little bit, forcing itself to stumble with its hooves back onto the ground. Fluttershy internally cursed herself for being so weak, but she was able to get back onto her hooves. She turned as she began to run again, escaping from the tormenting creature. She felt like her lungs were burning, as each hoof step seemed to only intensify the chest pain in her chest. But she had to keep going. She rounded another corner, seeing another split before her. The buzz in the music box returned. She swiftly moved her head back and forth, seeing the mannequin trying to head for her, trying to attack her. She wouldn't let it this time. She turned down to the left path, running away from it, galloping with all of her might. She looked up ahead and saw an opening. She rushed forward, putting all of her might to this point of escape. She jumped out of the water, letting it onto the dry land as she reached down to the door and opened it, escaping it before shutting it. Fluttershy panted heavily, leaning against the cool steel door. She felt like her chest was on fire, burning from behind and tossed around and slammed. She could feel blood trickling down her side where the creature had cut into her, and as she felt where she had been hit slowly starting to swell. She could only let out gasping groans and pants of pain as she tried to breathe, her lungs feeling like they might burst with each breath of air. They were monsters, just as Pinky had said they were. The music box had warned her of the dangers of the creatures too. But when she had been struck, she couldn't find the strength to stand up. She had been willing to lay there and take it, but she wouldn't let that mannequin to do whatever it had intended to do with her. But a voice struck out in her mind. It was Rainbow's voice. I need you to be strong. She had told her to be strong. Fluttershy had put the lantern down for a moment, wiping the blood from her mouth with her wet hoof. She was soaked. The water had drenched her completely. She needed to dry off, and she needed to put something in her wounds. She looked around the room she had just entered. It was a room similar to the one she had fallen into. Only this time there was a ladder in the middle of it, leading up to a hole with a faint light shining down from it. Fluttershy adjusted her aching jaw, gently spitting out some blood that had been pooling in it. She then gingerly picked up the lantern and turned it off. Pacing in the bag, she rubbed her jaw gently.
I need a better way. I need a better way to get light.
She thought to herself for a moment. She couldn't keep holding the lantern with her mouth if she was going to keep biting down onto it. Fluttershy slowly walked to the ladder, began to climb up with one hoof at a time. The ladder seemed to stretch far into the hole. Fluttershy could barely see the top of the ladder, though she could still see it. A faint light was shining down to the hole, illuminating her path. The water in her mane and coat felt like it was holding her down, but it was slowly dripping off her body. With a few final grunts, she managed to pull herself up to the top of the ladder, pulling herself to the wooden floor and let herself lay on it, panting as she breathed. Her eyes felt a little heavy, but she couldn't let herself lose consciousness yet, not until she at least tended her wounds. She was in a house. She couldn't tell whose house was it. Oh, hold on. She was in a house. She couldn't tell whose house was it, but it must have been a house in Ponyville. It was small but cozy. She grunted as she slowly got to her feet, moving to where she could see a bathroom in the house. She pulled 2 towels that were hanging onto the wall and placed them against their body. She winced as the cotton landed into the scratches on her back, but bore the pain for the moment. She rubbed the towels against her hair and coat, getting as much as water as she could get off of her. Once she felt as she was dry enough, she looked into her wounds in the mirror. The scratches on her back were deep than she thought, but they weren't serious. What's worried more was the deep blue marks that had appeared in the side of her chest where she had been kicked. Her teeth was a little red, but it seemed to be minor bleeding. It stopped on its own. She looked through the bathroom drawers and found a bottle of antiseptic and a few bandages. With very careful hooves, she cleaned her wounds, grimacing and gritting her teeth as the alcohol burned. Once it was clean, she carefully placed the bandages against the wounds and wrapped them with a few times around her body. A few tears escaped her eyes as she grimaced in pain, but she made sure the bandages were on securely. She panted once the whole procedure was over. She wobbly stood on her hooves and inspected the bandages. They'll do for now, but she needed serious medical evaluation once she could find a doctor. Her eyes grew heavy as she slowly wandered out of the bathroom. She couldn't go outside like this. It was as if she was attacked and she couldn't have the strength to run away. Fluttershy wandered at the nearby couch and gently slid her bag off, placing it next to the couch before getting on top of it and curling up.
Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie, where are you two?
Fluttershy thought as she began to close her eyes, a few tears escaping.
Please, I need you to with me.
I need you to be strong right now, alright?
Alright, I promise I won't be.
Fluttershy said, holding back her lonely sobs. She had to be strong. She told Dash that she would be. Fluttershy slowly but surely fell asleep. End of chapter 2. Alright, that was one hell of a chapter. How's everyone been holding up of that? Is everyone okay? Oof, that felt good. That was Fluttershy's first encounter with that was Fluttershy's 2 encounters with her monster. We have just seen 2 of Fluttershy's own monsters that is in this chapter. The first was that black dragon that was really trying to ensure that she doesn't escape, and the other was that mannequin that almost would have killed her if she wasn't careful. And now I think we could actually go on to chapter 3, and that's going to be where we're gonna go until chapter 3, and that'll be it for today's stream. I hope you guys are okay with that. Let me take a swig of water. You holding up over there? Okay. You're holding up over there, Dave. That's good at least. All right. I think it's about time we actually get to continue more into Silent Ponyville Chapter 3. Well, Silent Ponyville 2 Chapter 3. My bad. Fluttershy snapped awake when a loud explosion rocked the house. A vase had been placed next to the couch and came crashing to the ground, shattering into pieces.
What was that?
She asked, moving quickly to get off the couch. She instantly regretted the fast movement, twisting her body in a way it didn't improve to her chest, as her chest roared at her in pain. She collapsed onto the ground, panting as her chest throbbed. For a moment, she had forgotten about her injuries. She groaned as carefully as she sat up, making sure not to offend her wounds. She inspected her dressings carefully. Her injuries hadn't bled any more than expected during her sleep, and the recovery was about where she would have expected to sleep in for a bit of sleep. I am sorry, Chad, I stammered there. She carefully got into her hooves and took a few steps. She then stretched her wings before wincing slightly and shutting them back closed. She couldn't move. She couldn't walk. She couldn't fly in a bit of pain. But she still wasn't about to go flying around.
How long was I asleep?
Fluttershy asked aloud. She hadn't meant to fall asleep. Her body had done it almost on its own, as if on instinct.
I got separated from Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie. I should have been looking out for them, not sleeping.
Fluttershy felt awful for having left her friends alone, even though it was against her will. She probably felt they were probably worried about her. They must have gone looking for her.
Oh, I hope you two are alright.
Fluttershy tried not to let her worries hold her back. Before moving to the front of the door of the house she was in, the door was locked. She stared at the door in shock. The door was locked from the inside. Above the handle of the door, there was a doll-shaped symbol hovering over the lock.
Why is the door locked?
Fluttershy frowned, staring at the door. She had to get back outside and see what was going on. She turned back around and looked at the house in closer detail. It was a small, quaint little house, but it didn't look like a house that would normally be built in Ponyville. She hadn't noticed it till just now, but the building material was the kind you would find in a cloud city, material that was made specifically for sitting on clouds.
Huh? This is a cloud house?
Fluttershy looked around, baffled. But the only cloud house in Ponyville is Rainbow Dash's house. Oh, that was 7 minutes for Flut. Okay, let me reiterate that. I'm so sorry, chat.
Huh? This is a cloud house?
Fluttershy looked around, baffled.
But the only cloud house in Ponyville is Rainbow Dash's house.
Fluttershy was confused. She didn't know whose house this was, as it certainly wasn't Rainbow Dash's. She looked at the vase that lay broken down, noticing something unusual on one of the broken pieces. Getting closer, she could see it wasn't really a piece of the vase at all, but something that must have been there inside of the vase when it broken. She carefully picked up examining the item. It was a white coin with the shape of a cloud in it, with tiny engraving on the edges that read, "The Floating Cloud." She had never been the one to take things from other ponies, but something told her that she was supposed to take this with her. Maybe it was Pinky's words about it that was going on in this place. Maybe it was gut instinct. Or maybe it was something that the coin was holding valuable. She carefully placed the coin in her bag before looking back at the house. Her eyes drew for a moment that she had noticed. Her eyes drew to a movement she hadn't noticed before. Outside of the door in the hallway in the house were several moths flying outside of the door. This seemed odd to her. The moths seemed to have no reason to be gathering by the door, unless perhaps there was some kind of food behind the door they couldn't reach. She walked up to the door and carefully pushed it open. The door gave way, opening up to what appeared to be someone's study. The moths didn't seem to move still, confusing her, but she slowly entered the study regardless. The walls were lined with books on various subjects. She couldn't recognize several different topics. Most of them were about cloud building. Some were poetry books, while others looked like business books. They all shared the same markings, though. These were books from Cloudsdale. Fluttershy slowly walked into the desk that sat in the end of the room. There was a book on the open desk. Curiosity got the best of her. She read onto the open page. Patient has shown symptoms of weakened immune system. The case continues to grow more baffling as it now discredits all prior diagnosis from what's going on. Every step forward causes 2 steps back. I have to start going through a new test that determines what the cause of her illness is. I don't have much time though. Her heart is growing weaker. The muscles are growing thinner as more time passes. I fear it will rupture before too long. I have to start on her on another set of medication. She wouldn't like being any more drugs, but we have prolonged this for as long as we can. June 23, 983, medical case of number 1156, entry 14. Dr. R.K. Mandius. It was a book recording medical cases through the years. The book was open to one of the last entries of the book, recording the case of an unknown disease that had sprouted up before the turn of the millennium. It seemed the book went on to explain more of the other entries.
Huh?
Fluttershy looked at one of the pages. It was indented as if something was lying underneath the pages. She lifted the page up to look, and seeing a small coin with the shape of a house in it, written in tiny text were the words, "The Old Home." She carefully picked up the coin, placing it in her bag. She was curious, though, as to why would the book was open up in that particular page, or why was the coin been hiding underneath it, or why would the coin be hiding just underneath it? She had always seen a lot of medical books around the house. She had always seen a lot of medical books around the house, and she had read a lot of them. It's how she becomes so good at tending the sick and the injured. Next to the book, she noticed something that looked like a long piece of string. It was curled on the desk in a coil, as if waiting for someone to use it.
Oh, hey, I think I can use this.
Fluttershy thought, as a light bulb felt like it just turned on in her head. She carefully reached into the bag and pulled out the lantern. Her jaw still ached from biting down on it, but certainly didn't hurt as badly as now. She placed the lantern down to the desk before taking the string and looping it through the handle. She carefully tied the string into a knot, with it now looping itself into a makeshift necklace. She carefully placed the necklace around her neck, testing the string. It seemed to be supported by the weight of the lantern just fine. The lantern just hung in the front of her chest comfortably. She carefully turned the switch to test it out how hot the lantern will get. The flame coming up to life. She let it sit in her chest for a moment, then walking around slowly, then jump around as best as she could without making her injuries scream at her. The flame danced around to her movement, but never made the lantern too hot. It felt warm against her coat. The lantern hanging before her gave her good lighting in front of her, though she had to turn around to see if something was behind her.
Oh, Fluttershy, you're so smart.
She chuckled softly at her own ingenious. She turned the lantern off for a moment, since the house was plenty of light for her to see. But now she could have been sitting in the light and not hurt her jaw any more than she did. She looked up at the moths that still circled outside the study. She was still confused at their flight pattern. Her study of moths showed that they usually prefer travel following some source of light to nearby sources of nectar. These particular moths just seemed fascinated with circling around the air before the door. She pushed the thoughts out of her mind for a moment, seeing as if in front of her was now an open doorway to the kitchen. She curiously stepped into it, looking at the small but quaint kitchen. She could smell something sweet, turning her head to look at the table, seeing a pie simply sitting in it. Wait,
Who left the pie there? Who left the pie here?
Fluttershy asked curiously, walking up and looking at the pie. It smelled like an apple pie, though there were a particular extra scent to it, a special ingredient that's been added to making it. The scent reminded her of her mother. There was someone she hadn't thought about in a long time. Besides her dreams, she hadn't thought about her mother in a long time. She felt guilty about it. Her mother had died of a disease when she was young, leaving her and her father to fend for themselves.
Mother.
Fluttershy quietly muttered, trying to remember her mother fondly. Images of the pink-haired mare flashed through her mind briefly, though for some reason they all felt hazy, as if she couldn't focus on the very memories she had of her mother. If she tried to concentrate harder on a memory she remembered liking, it seemed to haze out even more. Fluttershy rubbed her head in confusion. She had trouble thinking about her mother before. What was different now? Was it because it was the strange place? Was it the effects of Twilight's spell? It was the only thing that made sense to her. Okay, where was I? She looked at the pie longingly, but the thought of it smelled good. She couldn't bring herself to try it. Something just doesn't seem too right about it. She saw something glint next to it though, drawing her attention. Next to the pie was a gold coin with what looked like a mare in it. In the tiny writings of the words, "The trapped mare" was within. She instinctively added into the bag alongside the others. She wasn't sure what possessed her to collect them. She turned to the table and walked out to the kitchen. The house seemed small. She was already outside of the last door that she hadn't checked yet. She carefully pushed the door outside, opening to peer inside. It was a bedroom door. It was a bedroom, though she could only tell though she could only tell from there that the bed pressed up against the wall. The only furniture in the room was a dresser with a glass case on it, and on the front of it appeared to be indentations. Fluttershy carefully walked up to the desk, getting a better look at it. The indentations in the shape of coins, with 5 holes. On the glass case, she could see a note that had been taped down. Only 3 of the 5 exist in this world. In the morning, noon, and night, the quiet wind blows through the world, giving the world its shape. When the sun beats down its heat, cold and water disappear into the sky, awaiting those who arrive at home to build it. The world awaits, sitting quietly and empty. It doesn't take long. They arrive, they build. What once was now empty is now filled. But though it's filled, it's not filled with joy or fun. Instead, there is a quiet, unspoken misery. Fluttershy read the note twice, thinking about what the note was saying. The jar had 5 spots to fill coins with, and she had brought 3 with her. Her instincts had yielded results, but now she just had to figure out what this meant. She reached into her bag and pulled out the 3 coins, looking at each and its shape carefully.
Okay, when water is evaporated by heat of the sun, it becomes vapor, which the vapor then turns into clouds.
Fluttershy surmised as she carefully put the floating cloud into the second spot, figuring out the first slot must be empty, similar to the effect of a wind.
Then, next, they build a home in the empty quiet.
Fluttershy thought, leaving the second spot next to the open floating cloud empty, and placing the old home in the slot.
Then, that just leaves this coin in this slot.
She placed the trapped mare in the final slot. The desk let out a loud click, confirming that she had done everything correctly. The glass case in the drawer swung open slowly, revealing a small lever inside of it. Curious, Fluttershy carefully placed the hoof on the switch and flipped it. Her ears perked up as she heard sounds of something moving. She turned her head and saw the door-shaped hole that had opened into the wall that wasn't there before. Inside was a dim staircase that led down into what looks like a basement. Fluttershy looked cautiously down the staircase. It was dark. She couldn't see a few feet past down them. Her music box was still silent. She assumed that there was no troubles just yet. She turned the light on her lantern on and began to make her way down. The wall seemed to be damp as she walked further down into the darkness. There was a faint smell of wet mildew that emanated through the darkness. But she continued further down. She wasn't sure what would be waiting for her, but the area seemed to be hidden, so her instincts told her something was waiting for her in the bottom. The stairs flattened down before opening up into a wide basement. Fluttershy looked around, taking into the side of the gray, moldy walls. Her eyes wandered to the room before her and noticed something in the corner. It was a small pony doll, worn and torn through years gone by, covered in stitches and rotted with age. Fluttershy felt a pang of nostalgia looking at the doll. It was very similar to the one she had when she was a child. However, the one she owned wasn't so riddled with stitches or aged so badly. It was in a storage box sitting in a storage box in her house, waiting for the day she'd pass it down to a little filly or colt of her own one day. Next to the doll open was a messy sewing box. Spools of thread on needles were scattered around, as if someone had dropped the case in a hurry and left it there. She figured it must have been the case to help sew the doll back together. She turned from the doll kit and looked around further before noticing a glint on the ground. She carefully walked over it and noticed a key on the ground. She leaned in closer and noticed that the key is the shape of a doll on the end of it.
Oh, this must be the key to that door.
Fluttershy smiled before picking it up and placing it in her bag. Now she could hopefully leave this house and start looking for her friends. Her ears picked up as she heard a strange sound off the distance. It was a sound as if a siren was going off, warning the town about something. The sound sent a chill up her back, but she couldn't explain why. Something was off, putting out the sound of the siren. She felt like she was going to get out of the basement right away. She turned herself around and began to quickly walk back up the stairs that she had just come down from. But something seemed off. She couldn't tell what it was right away, but something about the stairs seemed different from how she walked down from them. The smell of mildew was stronger. The steps seemed to be more slick than she was when she's coming down. She started to hear the sound of water dripping, almost as if the water was coming from everywhere. Her ears picked up, and what sounded like rushing water. She turned to the light of the stairs behind her. Hearing the sound from below her, her eyes widened as the sudden water was rapidly filling up the stairwell. It was rising fast, bubbling and swelling as it swirled around the stairs. Okay, 1 second, chat. I need some water for this. Fluttershy turned to her hooves and began to run, running as fast as she could up the stairs. Her hooves were almost slipping onto the steps as she ran from the water. She could hear it quickly filling up behind her, drawing closer as she ran. If she didn't get back up to the top of the stairs, she was going to drown. Her front hoof slipped, sending her face into the stairs. She yelped in pain, but quickly stood back up and tried to shrug off the pain off. Her back hoof was touching the swelling water that she burst into a full panic. Her legs stretching out as quickly as she could get her up from climbing the steps faster.
I should be out of here right now. What? The stairs weren't this long. I should be back in the room by now.
Her mind screamed as she ran. Her chest was yelling at her, screaming as if she was being put under too much strain. Her face ached with a dull thud. She pushed all of that to the side, trying to make it an afterthought. She couldn't die here, not drowning in some staircase when she could at least find her friends. The water began to splash in her back hooves, drawing closer still. She panted heavily as her body was struggling to stay away. The stairwell suddenly made a sharp turn into a large opening. The stone steps were being replaced with a metal fire escape, circling around into a large open shaft that reached into the sky. Fluttershy couldn't see where it opened up, but she couldn't stop there. She began to run up to the metal stairwell, having to turn the very few feet up to the square.
Hey, listen.
Oh, yes? Stretch? Okay. Oh, okay. I think I might need a little bit of a stretch. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, that's a good stretch. Oh, thank you very much, Fantome. Okay, where was I? Ah, she began to run up to the metal stairwell, having to turn every few feet to go up in the square spiral staircase. The water was swelling up faster now. Her hooves were doing their best, but she couldn't tell that she wasn't going as fast enough. Her heart leapt out into her chest, into her throat, as her breathing became hard to force exertion. The water swelled, the back of her hooves falling into the water. Fluttershy cried and did her best to run, but the resistance and churning of the water instantly slowed her down. The water level slowed up to her legs, over her body. Fluttershy took in one last gasp of breath before the water rushed past her head, finally submerging her. She flailed her hooves into the water, trying to reach to the surface. She was panicking. The water currently was pushing her body, as she was having a difficulty orienting herself to follow the direction of the rising water. She swam with all of her might upwards, but her body was feeling the strain. Her light had gone out when she submerged into the water, and she quickly getting her disoriented, unable to tell which direction was the right one. The water swirled around her. It clawed her body and mind. She could barely think. The world was quickly being lost to her. Her burning lungs forced her mouth open, the air escaping from her lungs, wanting to be replaced with fresh oxygen, but only water was waiting for her. She was fading, and she could feel it. She wouldn't be in this world for much longer.
Come in! Come on! Come on in! The water is fine!
Fluttershy smiled happily as she gently floated around the quiet lake, looking at Rainbow Dash, who seemed to be hesitant about entering the water.
Sure. I'll be right there.
Rainbow forced a smile on her face as she began to pull the hoof in her water. She slowly began to walk into the water, though she didn't tread too far. She kept herself about half a leg's length above the water.
Do you not feel like swimming? Because we could do something else, if that's what you want to do.
Fluttershy said, slowly swimming next to Rainbow Dash, looking a little worried.
It's not that, it's just...
Rainbow looked away, as if embarrassed.
I can swim. I can swim, but I'm not very good at it.
Oh, thank you for the hydrate, Bearwald. I definitely would need that. Okay.
Oh, is that all? Well, I can teach you how to swim better.
Fluttershy said, smiling comfortably as she swam up next to Rainbow Dash before standing up into the shallows.
Well, I've never been much into practicing on swimming. After all, I've always been the fast flyer by nature. Water just seems slower in comparison. It's too heavy to get a good momentum going.
Rainbow furrowed her brow as she kicked the water. Fluttershy thought about this for a moment, before smiling.
Well, I can teach you how to use your wings underwater so that it's similar to flying. You can actually get around pretty fast if you do the technique right. Really? There's a way to do that?
Rainbow said, rather surprised.
Of course, though it takes a lot of practice to get it right. There are a lot of subtle movements, and you've got to position your body correctly so the water will drag you less if you swim. But it's possible.
Fluttershy smiled proudly, feeling good about knowing how something Rainbow Dash was interested in that she didn't know yet.
You have to show me. I can incorporate swimming into my tricks if that's what you say is true. Of course I'll show you.
Fluttershy giggled softly, before moving back into the deeper waters.
Now, watch carefully.
She spread her wings in the water and prepared to show off Dash for the first time. How's everyone so far, chat? I mean, we are about to get to a good part in this chapter. Let's see. It's a siren again. Yep. I definitely came prepared with that siren sound effect. I mean, this is Silent Ponyville and it's based in Silent Hill. Always come prepared. I would say. Fluttershy's eyes shot open in the dark waters as she spread her wings out. Her hooves flailed around for a moment before catching the rail of the metal staircase. She put her hind legs onto the rail as her wings adjusted, battered by the current, but she could do this. She kicked off her back legs as she moved her hooves forward, flattening her body as if she began to move rapidly in the water. Her wings were bent and moved as they very carefully moved into the rushing water, moving the water around her wings to give her the forward movement. She could feel the water rushing all around her, trying to back her down. She began to flap her wings precisely, scooping the water and pushing against it, thrusting herself forward as she slipped gracefully through the water. Her mind and body reeled and ached and screamed and tried to tear her apart, looking for relief from her pain, but from the inferno from her chest, from the wounds telling her she had to stop. Nothing could make her stop. She gritted her teeth. She narrowed her eyes. She flapped her wings with every ounce of strength she could muster as she swam through the darkness, needing an exit. A dim light filled the edge of her vision as she spread her wings far, grabbing as much water as she could and powering them down to thrust her from the edge of the light. The loud gasp echoed among the sounds of splashing water as her head surfaced through the water. She coughed and gasped, hacking and wheezing as she scrambled for an edge of the water, grabbing a hold of the floor. She threw both of her hooves to the ground, holding her up as her lungs accepted sweet, sweet relief of air. Her head throbbed like mad. Her body felt like it's been torn apart for every muscle in her body, telling her she was lucky to be alive. She coughed up water that had entered her lungs. She grimaced unpleasantly as the pain became more apparent to her. Her echoing pants bounced back into her ears, making her realize just how lucky she truly was. For a moment, she had accepted death as the inevitability, that she wouldn't have no choice but to die in that cold, watery hell. The water was cold. She hadn't noticed it in her panic, but she felt herself shivering as she floated into the now calm water. She groaned as she pulled herself up, using any strength to escape from the water. She managed to drag her legs out from the water, before slowly pulling her tail out as well. She lay on the floor panting, drenched in the cold water, breathing heavily as everything ached. She felt her eyelids slowly closing, wanting to drift into a sleep to calm down.
No!
Her mind snapped at her, forcing her eyes back open.
Fluttershy, you had just almost drowned. Not to mention, you're drenched in freezing water. If you go to sleep without anyone, you may never wake up. The oxygen deprivation may put you into a coma, and sleeping in this cold could result in hypothermia. You cannot go to sleep right now.
She panted as she could feel the onset of her panic returning. Her medical training was coming back to her now. It was fine before when it was just lacerations and bruising, but this was more serious. She couldn't go to sleep. She had just saved her life, and she couldn't let it slip away from her so easily. She tried to stand up, getting back to her hooves. Her legs shook tremendously. She could barely put any weight on them, before they slipped under her hoof. She felt her heart rate accelerating.
Good. Stay awake. Panic might just be my friend right now.
She grunted as she did her best to stand. She had to get up. She had just started walking. With the last of her strength, she found her legs and was standing. Her legs were shaking like mad, but she was standing. She was very carefully began to shake her whole body, harder than her body's natural shaking. The water in her coat splattered as best as she musters. There was no way she could get all of it out with her for being so tired, though. She tried to look around for something to support her, but the light was too dim to see anything. She looked back at the lantern and was still pressed smartly against her chest. Oh, God. I'm okay. I'm okay. Oh, I felt something in my throat just now from there. She needed the warmth of the flame right now. She clicked at the lantern, flipping the switch several times. She prayed that despite the water logging, that it would still work for her. By some miracle, the flame appeared once more. Somehow the oil and the wick were still usable. Her head was groggy, shaking as the world seemed to spin around her, but she did her best to get a look around the world. She was in a small square room in the doorway She was in a small square room in a doorway, open to what seemed to be a lobby outside. A large hole was in the middle of her current room, filled with water that she had just escaped from. She carefully began to walk out from the room with the cold water into the lobby. Every step made her body shudder and cry, putting her on the verge of collapsing with each step. She needed towels to dry off. She needed to wrap up something warm. She needed to put some food and drink in her. She carefully walked towards the desk and she saw in front of her. There were 3 signs on top that instantly took notice of there were 3 things on top of it that she instantly took notice of. The first was a map where she was. It read Cloudsdale Hospital in bold letters before showing the layout of the 2-story building.
Cloudsdale Hospital?
She stammered out unintentionally. She could hear the frailty in her voice, but she spoke anyway. This hospital was where her father had worked, the best doctor in all of Cloudsdale. He had saved more lives than most other doctors had combined. It was thanks to him that she had learned all the medical knowledge that she had taken care of her animals and other sick ponies. If she was in a hospital, she was sure she could find all supplies she needs to take care of herself. Fluttershy quickly took note of the patient rooms where she had come back to pick up the map. Her bag would soak the map and ruin its use for her at the moment. The next thing she saw on her desk was a bottle labeled health drink. She remembered them from her visits to the hospital. They were a special type of medicine to help relax and heal the body. She needed that right now. She carefully unscrewed the top of the drink before pouring the contents into her mouth. She chugged the whole bottle hungrily. The mixture tasted a bit like bitter strawberries, but felt soothing down her throat. She finished her drink and gave it a moment to sink in. Almost instantly, she felt some of her exhaustion began to wane. The pain had been screaming at her that had begun to fade, growing numb. Her sight straightened more, and her mind lost some of the foggy haze that's been floating around in it. She could tell the drink had a painkiller effect to it. She wasn't truly feeling better just yet, but it was alleviating the pain so she could feel better. It was now with her head feeling clearer. She was able to get a good look at the lobby for the first time. The floor was made of rustic steel that was growing some kind of mold. The walls were falling apart from age, mold, and being soaked with water. The roof was caving in many places. The waiting chairs and tables were falling apart, in pieces and torn in shreds. There were overturned wheelchairs and gurneys. Some spots of the floor had bloodstains on them. The whole room seemed to scream that it was nothing but a vile place. Fluttershy turned her attention away. She didn't want to focus on the state of the room. She had to attend to her body's needs first. But before she left, she read the last thing on the notice of the lobby's desk. A note that looked like it was written hastily in red pen. I locked it away. It can't hurt us anymore. The staring. Oh, Luna, the staring. They erected it, but it won't go away. It's judging us. It knows. But it can't hurt us without it. I locked it away. But should I need it, I have this code. HIDE. The note didn't make sense for her at the moment, but she felt it must be important. She'd come back for it as well. She stepped away from the counter, taking her new vigor to move past it, and through the double doors behind it. She appeared in the hallway, one she was familiar with from her childhood. Though the place of it had aged in despair, she still recognized it. She quickly made it over to the first room she could find and pushed it open. Inside was an examination room, though the cabinets were falling apart and the table looked like it had been falling to disuse. Cole, I know you. I'll be right there in a moment. It was still an examination room. Fluttershy carefully removed her saddlebag from her back and placed it under the table. Before moving the broken counters, she found various supplies, fresh bandages, and a few more health drinks, towels, gauze pads, everything she'd need to get herself feeling back on top form. As she began to work delicately on drying herself and applying fresh bandages, she didn't notice the soft hissing that began to emanating from the music box in her bag. End of chapter 3. So, how's everyone so far? We have read through the first 3 chapters of Silent Ponyville. Let's see, let me take a look at that. Good as in good or good as in, oh boy, it's time for trauma. Yes. Yes, actually. But I'm not going to repeat the same mistake that I made last week when it comes to the live reading. I think this is where we're going to call it here because it has been an intensive read, and I do not want to make I do not want to make my mouth go numb at the end of the night after reading the entirety of Silent Ponyville like last week. Oh, I can still feel my mouth going numb again. But I actually did enjoy reading this with you guys, and I really do hope that we can continue this again. We most likely will do that by next week's chapter reading. So, yeah, this is where we're gonna have to call things out. Yes to what? Exactly. But yeah, this is where we're gonna close things off from here, and I think this is where we're gonna give ourselves a breather and give ourselves a break, and most likely next week we'll come back to this. Let's see. Let me take a look on my list. Melissa is still doing Alien Isolation, and how about for this time around, we'll do a little bit of a raid, and we'll raid my good friend Do Jamie for chance for this one. But yeah, join me next week as we'll continue into more Silent Ponyville. And Saturday, maybe just maybe things will be a little bit different, and we will actually we would actually be things will maybe my echo will finally die down a bit. I don't know, but maybe doing the acoustic foam installation might do our work. But yeah, let's also write down this little message here for when it comes to rating. And this is where we're gonna write down for J. And I am going to, okay, you know what, we'll just say that we'll just write this down here, and that's what we're gonna say when we rate J. So I will see you guys on Saturday, and we will continue more of Left 4 Dead 2. Until next time, fellas, you have a good night.